we have now started the European events, and I think what we'll get on with next, let's get through the German leagues, because we have two of them, and also because, well, our first one, it seems like the next logical step we can take. So we're going to head up to Germany. I did weigh up my options, and eventually I decided the car we're going to use for our next event will be this. The Volkswagen Golf 5 GTI. And as for the colour I'm going to drive this thing in, well, yeah, let's get this thing in blue. I like this thing in blue. We're going to do that. Plus it's also because, well, for our next event, well, I would say our options are going to be pretty pricey. So that's why I technically did the Easy Capri Rally twice, because I figured I was needing some extra cash to get me through the next few events. Also because we will have championship events involved as well. So we've now bought the VW Golf, and before we do anything else, I think it's advisable to get some tuning on this thing, because, well, I'm not going to fit the parts yet, but I am going to get... Oh, okay, this thing's a turbo. But I am going to get some parts and pieces. I only gain 14 horsepower from that. A little bit low, but I think I'll be okay with it. Yeah, I'll put that on. I'd say we probably need about maybe 230 horsepower, and then I think we should be good. I think we should be okay with that, from what I can see. There shouldn't really be any further problems compared to what we've already had. I'll put this on as well, just in case. Hopefully that should be everything we need. Don't think we need any handling improvements. I think we should be okay with what we have. So I have selected the VW Golf Mark V GTI. And I chose this because, well, it was one of the cheapest options I could buy. So we're now getting through Schwarzwald League A. Or Schwarzwald Liga A. I hope I said that right. Anyway. 3-race event as we're heading to Trial Mountain, Opera Paris, and Autumn Ring. Let's now get through our first race at Trial Mountain. And so to start off, we have 3 BMWs and 2 Audis. This is more or less what I would have expected. Anyway, before we move on, I might as well put the racing brakes on. Just because, well, that's the only thing I did not fit whilst I was here. And also going to turn the driver aids off, because we don't need them. And okay, let's go. Hopefully the horsepower I have on this thing should be enough for us to get to the front, as we've got a BMW 3 Series, a BMW M Coupe, an Audi S3, an Audi TT, and a BMW Z4 as our competition here at Trial Mountain. And this one is going to be a tough one, because if we win, we'll get 115 points, and wheel spin off the launch. kind of what I would have expected, but I figure the upgrades we have on this thing should be enough to at least give us a shot of getting it through our first 2 races at least. But either way, we're already making good time as I have immediately moved up into 3rd spot, and I'm now right behind the BMW 3 Series, or more specifically the BMW 330i, which I have now overtaken for the lead. And now I am trying to see if I can pass the Audi S3, is it? I think that's an S3. Although it could as well be an A3. But either way, I have made my pass for the lead, and I think it's fair to say the tuning I put on this thing, so far at least, is helping me out. Although I'm not sure if it's going to stay that way. But either way, the reason I chose the Golf as well, because technically I drive a Polo, and I think spending my money on the Polo would probably just be too much of a haggle at this stage, because, well, I don't believe I have enough money to realistically go on a spending spree just yet in terms of my car choices. But at this stage, I think we should be okay. I more or less know what it is I need, and hopefully I have just the car I need in order to realistically make a run. As I am now leading by 4 seconds over the Audi S3. So I think it's fair to say this race is easier than what the points would suggest. But anyway, 4.8 seconds now is the gap at the front. And at this stage, we look to be doing okay. Even though my car is understeering a lot. But I think we should be okay with this. We pretty much now have the lead. I don't think we're going to be in too much difficulty at this stage. I'm now 6 seconds clear of the Audi S3. So I think that suggests to me that the turbo probably wasn't needed. Even though I am getting a lot of understeer from the car because, well, this thing is front wheel drive. But at this stage, I think we're doing okay. We're definitely slipping away from the rest of the field to suggest that we're definitely putting together a solid run. I think the only reason why it was 115 points is because of the S3. I think if it wasn't because of the S3, it would have been more like, what, 50, maybe 60 points. that we would have scored. But, I don't know. But yeah, judging by how just far ahead I already am, it definitely suggests to me that the turbo wasn't necessary. But either way, I still wind up scoring 115 on the A-spec points. Is the Audi going to be the only one to finish? Looks like it. Yes, he is. Yeah, that suggests to me we don't need the engine tuning for our next race. So that was race 1, and a pretty dominant race 1 I might add. So let's move on to race 2. And so we begin race 2, this time at Opera Paris Reverse. And where, once again, we have the Audi S3, but what we also have in this field includes the VW Golf Mark IV R32, the Audi A3, the Audi S3, and we got the 2 BMWs from the previous event that I probably don't need to explain. So, I'm convinced in saying we don't need the turbo kit for this, from what I can see, because I won last time around at Trial Mountain pretty easily, and the race itself was definitely easier than what the points would have suggested. So I am prepared to take those off as we get through this. 4 laps of Opera Paris Reverse, and the points have now increased to 155. Although, I'm convinced in saying this will still be easy. Or if it isn't, then I'll just have to put them back on, but either way, I am prepared to make it more of a challenge if that's what it takes for the purpose of making the racing closer. But I do believe we should be fine in the long run, as I've already made my first 2 passes of the race so far. And now I am already up into P4, so all I have to do is think about how I'm going to get to the front. So hopefully we should be okay with this. But if we're not, then I'll probably know what to do next time. And that's make sure to put my turbo kit back on, but judging by what I can see right now, I don't think we need the turbo. Because I've already moved up into 2nd place. And the only thing I really have that's a performance increase on this car would basically have to be the racing chip. But the way we're currently running, I'm convinced in saying we probably don't even need that. Because I'm convinced in saying these cars don't have tuning upgrades on them. And plus, I'm now right behind the Audi who leads us. I'm convinced in saying once I do manage to pass him, it'll be a pretty easy pass, as I accidentally got into the back of him. But you know what? I think we should be okay at this stage, because, well, I'm pretty sure the Audi A3 is not going to be too much of a challenge for us. We more or less have the best car here from what I can see. Even though he is getting away from me just a little bit. But it doesn't matter because I dart to the inside because I can. And just like that, And basically, after being, well, less than 2 laps in, I have taken the lead in my Golf GTI. So, from what I can see, we've pretty much got this one in the bag, now that we're leading. So, coming towards the end of lap 2, I almost got into the fence, but able to avoid it. And that's now the end of lap 2, where I lead by 2.8 seconds. So we will see how we go. As I am passing by the Opera Paris Ferris wheel. And since we're not really going to be challenged for the lead from here on out, this is more or less my race to lose now. So heading through those tight corners again for the second time. We don't really have much of a competition behind us. It's pretty obvious to say the racing at this point has been relatively easy. And I have a 6.5 second lead over the Audi A3. So, one more lap to go here at Opera Paris, as I now have a 7.6 second lead over the Audi A3. And I think that gap is only going to get bigger as time goes on. Unless I go for a spin. But I don't think that's going to happen. Because I'm pretty sure that at this stage, we can more or less just afford to relax. From what I can see. So, yeah. And, yeah, losing bits of time because, well, I'm hitting walls. But I think that's okay because, well, we do have a big enough lead to at least be certain in saying that we probably won't lose it in the last few corners unless my controller suddenly disconnects, but I know that's not going to happen. Barring the worst possible outcome, this is still going to be an easy win. Had a few hits with the wall, that's why the gap is down to 6 seconds, but either way, it doesn't really matter because I'm still going to win with a comfortable margin over the Audi A3 and the Golf R32, as everyone else is now crossing the line and everyone finished. So I think it's fair to say I just needed to take off the turbo parts in order to just go out and win. That's basically what I did. And now I will save my replay, because I do not have a replay saved at Opera Paris Reverse yet. Saving this, of course, for the purpose of clickbait. Because that's what I do around here. I save my replays for the purpose of clickbait. Okay. One race to go in German League A. And so for the final race of the German League A, we have got a VW Golf R32 along with the BMW M, the BMW Z4, an Audi S3 and an Audi TT. Something tells me this is probably going to be a piece of cake. So basically the tuning I did to this thing probably wasn't worth it, but I still did it anyway because, well, why not? Probably don't need the racing brakes on either, now that I think about it. I think we should be fine for this. If my previous experience has taught me anything. But I have my parts and pieces there just in case. And now my points have increased by 13, as we're up to 168. But again, prior experience has taught me a fair share. And I am convinced in saying we should not have too many issues getting to the front without our tuning parts. Because the first two races, well, they were pretty easy. And I'm convinced in saying this race will more or less be the same, even though I am having to cope with a lot of understeer from the car. I'm going to assume the TT must have had a side draft. That was how he was able to pass me on the mini straight. That's probably what it was. And as I would have predicted, well, my pace is pretty good. And I think it's fair to say, whatever tuning I did to this thing before, it might have been unneeded. Because I'm already closing in on the leader, and I'm behind by less than 1.5 seconds. And now I'm probably behind by just 1 second. So I think that goes to show me the tuning was, well, completely unneeded. But I had it with me just in case. Because the racing here is easier than what the points would suggest. And the R32 is running wide, but that's okay because it gives me more time to close in on him. Which is basically what I aim to do. Gets on the brakes. I'm right behind him. As we now head up to this right-hander. We seem to be closing in on him. I am, of course, trying to make sure that I pull off a clean pass. It's ironically the same car that I started Midnight Club 3 with, the Golf R32, and I got some pretty good miles out of it, to be fair. And up the inside, I should also mention it was ironically the Golf R32 in my Midnight Club 3 playthrough that I, for want of a better phrase, got the most wins with. So, I'm at the front now. I think it's fair to say the tuning was unneeded, but I did have it with me just in case. So, in essence, I was probably just wasting extra money, since I know this event is actually easier than what the points total would suggest. But whatever. I still did what I had to do because, well, sometimes it's easier to come prepared. But it looks as though German League A is going to be swept pretty easily by the time we get to the end of this. As I had a snap of understeer on the corner exit, I think that was. But anyway, we got through the spiral, and now we just have one more lap to go. 4 seconds is virtually the gap, and it looks as though we are pretty much on track to putting together what should be, I think, an easy win. So 4.6 seconds is now the gap. Not really needing to go hard with my gear shifts. Because I do have a comfortable lead at the top. As we are now about midway through the last lap. 4.4 seconds is now the gap. And it looks as though that's going to be where it's at. So through the spiral, one more time around, and on the overhead bridge, as there is some very nice scenery in the background there. And got 2 corners left to adjudicate myself to. And there we go. Clean sweep in German League A. And we get a boatload worth of points. And everyone finished. I'm convinced in saying the point totals we get from this, they're more or less associated with probably the closeness of the pack altogether, and knowing what the odds are of everyone else, well, finishing. But either way, there we go. A more interesting race 3, but again, I still won in the end by 3 seconds. So that's all that matters. Okay, moving on. We already have a replay saved, so all that's left for us to do now is for us to collect our prize car, whatever that may be. And what do we get? We get the BMW M3 GTR race car. I'm also pretty sure this is the American Le Mans series model, if I'm not mistaken. Well, it goes by IMSA now, but it was formerly known as the ALMS. I'm pretty sure that's where this car comes from. Still, that's a nice pick, I'm not gonna lie. But there we go. That was German League A. And next up will be German League B. we are building up quite a collection at this point. And we've moved up another 0.5%. And now, let's go and find our BMW. As I have now used 40 different cars up to this point, and we're nearly 60 episodes into this playthrough. Here it is. BMW M3 GTR. I'm also pretty sure this is ironically the same M3 GTR that appeared in Need for Speed Most Wanted. At least I think it's the same model configuration. I know a lot of people will directly reference this car to Most Wanted. And in all honesty, I wouldn't blame them. Even though this is technically the American Le Mans series model. Okay. Now that we've got that out of the way... Still, wonder how many miles I drove in this thing. I drove 22 miles. That's to add on to the less than 24 miles I drove in the Janata, so that's either 55 or 56 miles altogether. Whatever. German League A is done, and next time we'll be doing German League B.